You are listening to Read This Book, a Prince George Public Library podcast. We gratefully acknowledge that we conduct our work on the ancestral lands of the Lheidli T'enneh. Hello, everyone. I am Leslie. Each episode, a special guest will tell us about a book in our collection that has inspired, surprised, or captured them, and why we should read it. This week's guest is Darcie. Darcie describes her taste in books as reading things that make her feel bad, but not in the way that you think. Darcie enjoys books that make her feel things, books that give her an outlet for her emotions. Sometimes, when there are difficult events in life, reading an emotional book can help her handle those feelings. It seems to lead to reading some interesting books. Darcie also enjoys reading sci-fi adjacent books, books with odd plots or characters, and books with a magic realism flavor. She will also read pretty much any book that's recommended to her. She is currently reading Evil, The Science Behind Humanity's Dark Side by Julia Shaw. And her favorite childhood novel was Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. Welcome, Darcie.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy that you're here.
Me too. You look happy also.
Okay.
Sometimes I tell people I'm happy and you can't tell, but with you, I'm like, you are happy. I'm here.
You can see my eye crinkles over my mask. So I am very excited that you're here because I consider you, Darcie, to be a prolific reader. And you're shaking your head, so we'll talk about that in a second. You have hosted several podcasts yourself about books and reading of books. But you do not consider yourself a prolific reader?
Yeah, I guess I've never been told that. Working in a library for so many years, I always feel like I'm reading. So I definitely have spent many years not reading a single thing, which also, now that I'm saying it out loud, was usually when I was a student. And so it was like I was reading for school. But I do have one friend who I do consider a prolific reader. Like, I cannot comprehend how he has so much time, and it's always audiobooks too. And so I look to him as a prolific reader, and I guess I just don't think about myself that way, but you might be correct. Actually, I've been reading a lot.
And have you always been a reader?
Yes.
Do you have a long relationship with libraries and reading?
Yes.
Can you tell me about your relationship to libraries?
Yes. I don't think this is uncommon, but I, as a kid, saw libraries as refuge and reading as escape, and I don't think that's changed. I mean, it's not just like a quality you find in kids. I think that kind of goes with you, and as you age, just from a young age, I remember coming to this library, and I would bring home like stacks of those little juvenile chapter books and like the Ace Ventura ones, which I kind of look back on and I'm like, gross, Darcie. But I was reading.
Right.
So anyway.
I think as library workers, you think all of our journeys and our stories are the same of how we came to be here.
Yes.
But and there's definitely similar themes.
Yes.
But there's so many ways that you can end up here. And it's really, really fascinating and really special as well. Today we're going to talk about Empire of Wild.
Yes.
By Cherie Dimaline.
Yes.
And Darcie, could you tell us what this book is about?
Yes. The very Spark Notes kind of reductive way to describe it is this main character, her name is Joan, her husband goes missing, and she's kind of on this quest to find him, and there's also a werewolf called the Rougarou who is kind of terrorizing the community a little bit, and she's kind of on this quest to figure out where her husband went, and she ends up finding this person. She sees there's this traveling religious group, and she kind of goes to investigate. One day she sees a tent up, she goes in and she sees her husband, but he doesn't remember her at all. There's no recollection. He's basically a different person in the exact same body. So she kind of, it's a bit of a adventure mystery trying to figure out how to, I guess, recover the person she knew, bring himself back into his body, I guess.
Wow. So would you say it, to me, as you're describing it, I'm actually remembering this old HBO show called Carnival. It's actually quite spooky. Like the idea of, walking into this tent.
Spooky.
And somebody that you know and love to see is gone. That's kind of like a horror to me. Does it have any horror elements, or is it strictly adventure?
Yes, there is some body horror, I guess I would call it. But, I mean, the only reason I would hesitate to say that is because the word horror is so loaded.
Right.
And this was not...
so I apologize, everyone. That was me that did that.
No, that was no shade. Just like if I were trying to get someone to read it, I would probably more say it was a little bit like kind of like magic realism, like fantasy.
Okay. Yeah.
And also like a family story. And by family, I don't mean like gather around kids, let's sit and read it together. But there is a lot about families in there too, and relationship.
What are the main themes of this book?
Ooh, I mean, I would definitely say like there is that kind of colonial perspective and the idea of, because there's this religious group which is kind of traveling and they're preying on indigenous communities. And there's a quote from the book actually where she's describing the reverend. She says, he was leading the people like some kind of Anishinaabe Pied Piper. And so they go and they're kind of, acting on behalf or in like, conjunction with like pipeline companies trying to get indigenous communities to kind of give up their land. And so, so there's a bit of that in there. And then the like family relationship theme a little bit. You see kind of some severed ties and kind of some recovery. Yeah, and there's also like, there's some humor in it too, for sure, because there's this moment. I mean, I wouldn't peg this as a funny book, but there's this moment where she's sitting around the table and like she's like with her family, and there's these. It just reminded me of sitting around a table with like my aunties, like making comments about like kind of like pseudo inappropriate comments and then cackling away, and me being like, ew, stop, like, because one of them says there is no right time to talk about men and women, it's all the time, because they're just like hey, and then they're just like, oh, you just want to like leave the room. But yeah, so that made me laugh. Like there's a lot of those tiny little really relatable conversations that I enjoyed.
Without spoilers, if possible, could you describe Empire of Wild in 3 words?
I don't like that question. Let me think. In 3 words. Oh, okay. So my 3 words: werewolf, actually singular. Werewolf, okay. Mystery, and reclamation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We ask this question on every episode. And all I want to do now is get them put on like t-shirts and mugs because they're just fantastic. They delight me so much. And
well, in my little kind of list of things that I normally like to read, like I had said, books that make me feel bad. And this is actually not a book that I would typically read. If someone said, you should read this book, it's about werewolves, it's a mystery, and like reclamation, I would be like, actually, I have an appointment. So no, like that would not appeal to me at all. Even though I'm saying this, I devoured the entire True Blood series. But I was like going through it and I needed something I could like flip through in it. I was struggling with reading. I needed something to relax. And this was in 2012. And I tried out the True Blood series because I wanted that like quick fix, and it worked. And then I started reading again after that. Like it just pulled me in. So
actually, I love that you brought that up because I've been struggling this past I'd say the last month with a reading slump. I couldn't finish anything. I had like 7 books going because I was just trying to get something to catch. And I was getting very cranky. I was like, I'm going to go back to my roots. And I am now 50% through a junior fantasy book.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I just need to finish a book to get excited about reading again.
Have you read Station 11?
I have read Station 11.
That one hooked me instantly. Yeah. I will also recommend The Beach by Alex Garland.
Okay.
Do not confuse it with the film. Okay. The film is based on the book.
Okay.
Takes some liberties. Leonardo DiCaprio's in it.
Okay.
But that book, if you're struggling to get into reading, like that book, just I think I read it in a sitting.
Oh.
So I don't believe the library has it. I think you can interlibrary loan it.
Okay.
Our copy was quite old back at the time, but.
Is this a new podcast idea? We should recommend books to get people out of their reading slumps.
It could be.
It could be like a self-help. People write in. I'm just going to ask Sierra, you're writing all of this down because this is gold.
I mean, it is being recorded.
I don't hear it.
Oh, boy. Okay. So, what are some other books that you would recommend if somebody enjoyed Empire of Wild?
Okay. So I would recommend, keeping on theme, Motorcycles and Sweetgrass by Drew Hayden Taylor. And also probably there's lots of options. I won't name a specific book, but anything by Thomas King, who I have a major crush on, if I may say.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I mean, he might hear this somehow.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine? He's like this weirdo in Prince George, BC, announced on the radio that she has a crush on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to get an email.
It's like, I just admire him so much.
Mm-hmm.
He makes me laugh. I've learned a lot from him.
Mm-hmm.
So easy on the eyes.
If it's okay with you, I've got a little game to play.
Ugh.
It's called This or That.
Can I cheat? Just kidding.
You can try. So I'm going to say two options, and as quick as you can, you follow your instincts and you tell me what you're thinking and feeling. So, hardcover or paperback?
Paperback.
Ebooks or audiobooks?
Audiobooks.
Bestsellers or classics?
Ooh. I'm going to say classics
Okay.
because I'm thinking about trailblazing women.
Is that a book, or you're literally
Not a book. Thinking about...
Is that capitalized?
Yeah, the women who are writing, who were writing and getting absolutely nothing.
Okay.
You know, but like pave the way for everybody.
Excellent. Library books or bookstore?
Bookstore.
Okay. Prairie or mountains?
Mountains.
Podcast or playlist?
Playlist.
Morning or night?
Morning.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Hike or snowshoe?
Hike. Why would you put something on your feet that makes it harder to walk? Just kidding. You can stay on top of the rotten snow. I get it.
This is the big one. Vampires or werewolves?
Werewolves.
Thank you, Darcie.
You're welcome.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in. It was wonderful to speak to you.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And we'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to Read This Book, a Prince George Public Library podcast. Please join us every 2 weeks to discover a new book or visit pgpl.ca to explore our catalog.